good afternoon. Appreciate everybody being here. Obviously an awesome day for us, a historic day for the University of Miami in terms of recruiting. A lot of effort from a lot of unbelievable people. You know, they need to be mentioned. I mean, everyone from the administrators, a lot of people that are here right now, people in development, recruiting, our coaching staff, a lot of just incredible hours on the road away from families, the wives back home, who certainly you know, do a great job in just making sure that families and everything, the daily processes go with it. I know I got to take my wife to dinner eventually before you know, they make me leave the house. But our players that did an amazing job at making sure that they were very open and honest about the University of Miami, our direction, our culture. But all that leads to a top 5 finish and still going. We're not done yet. We can't be done yet. Recruiting is an ever always just moving process that requires every ounce of what you have while you're developing your football team. We have some holes to fill. We filled some. We're excited about it. 15 players in the top 300. I could keep going on and on and on about stars and rankings, but I'm more concerned about how they play and conduct themselves when they get here. Sound familiar? Jimmy Johnson, right? Back in 1986, 87. So, but we're blessed to have these young men join us to earn the trust and the confidence of their families, and their trust and their confidence was earned through a process involving transparency, honesty, persistence, and passion about the University of Miami, which we all know and feel is the greatest place in the country. And they had a chance to see it, some on several occasions, and we welcome them to our family today. Okay, so instead of just sitting up here and becoming a dissertation type of press conference, we're going to open it up to talk about, you know, whether by position groups, whatever it may be, because there's a lot of guys, right? I believe 25 high school guys so far are in, 4 transfers are in. Like I said, that's a fluid number. It's going to keep going. The roster itself is always fluid. So that being said, I'm sure I missed some people. A couple of people I really want to thank that they never get credit. Juan Navarro, Dennis Smith, Mackenzie Rizzi. 3 absolute warriors in recruiting behind the scenes 24/7, and they do it all. They absolutely do it all. And if you could work at the intensity levels that we have to work at on a daily basis, it takes a lot, and they provide us with everything we need to be successful. Okay, and again, we feel like we're just getting started. It's an awesome day, incredibly excited. We want it to keep going, and it will, you know, it will. We'll just have to have a press conference at another time. So that being said, questions, please.
You signed Chris Johnson and Mark Fletcher at running back. Talk about the way they complement each other and what they add to the running back room.
2 very unique individuals and 2 very different skill sets, right? One is borderline world-class speed, explosive as it gets. You know, touch the ball, find a crease, and gone. You know, also excellent out of the backfield, a track star, gonna run track here at the University of Miami as well. Known Chris a long time, came to camp. Mark Fletcher has been a Hurricane fan since he's been a little dude, you know. It's funny when I see these pictures roll in about them when they were playing youth football, and I see the guys they played with, oftentimes they end up being University of Miami Hurricanes. So critically important to get that message out there. Our youth camps and those programs have got to really expand, because if they're wearing that U when they're this tall, it's going to be much easier to say yes on signing day when they're this big. So Mark Fletcher, you know, a powerful, a championship program, elusive, strong, fast, smart. He has all the traits like Chris that you want in a running back. 6'2", 215 pounds. Chris Johnson about 185 now, on his way to being 200 pounds. So you're looking at guys that aren't small. These are guys that, you know, they've got a little bulk to them. They tremendous lower body strength and explosiveness and power, ability to just drop their hips, redirect, come to balance. They're not afraid to block either. You watch them in pass protection. You know, you watch them when they're running down the field and blocking on sweeps or when the ball cuts loose. These guys are just championship mentality guys, and they were must-have guys for our program.
Coach, what will Emory Williams bring to the quarterback room?
He is 4 point something. I forgot what it was, but he's up there. He's an honor student, and he approaches the game in the same manner. He is a student of the game. He is a relentless, tireless worker. He spends his free time just out there working out, getting with quarterback specialists, finding teammates, creating new teammates just to get work in and get better at it. 6'4" plus, just really accurate arm. He can run. Okay, he's not what you consider a dual threat quarterback to the outside world. For us, he can run as well as you need to run. He's really smart, understands protections. He's a complete quarterback. And him being here in camp and working with us, answered all the questions we needed. He checked all the boxes. Awesome family, awesome young man, tremendous leadership skills, and a tremendous desire to be elite. And that really separates him from a bunch of other quarterbacks we recruited.
Mario, what does it say about you and your staff that you were able to bring in this class, and about the players in the class, that they were all bought into what you guys were telling them after the season that you guys had?
Right, well, I mean, first of all, I want to give credit to the staff. I really would rather not take any credit. You know, I think that them, and I wrote down a bunch of stuff and a bunch of people. I find myself fumbling for this paper. I blame Cam for that, but it's not just, it's the coaches, it's the analysts, the grad assistants, right? You think Reggie Bain had any pressure? Ruben Bain to come here? The medical staff, I mean, you know, everybody's involved. I mean, you have these visits, you have physicals, equipment, the recruiting we mentioned already, the people in video. How about the graphics they pumped out today? How about the edits they produced throughout the course of the year to keep recruiting alive? Our chaplain, creative, nutrition, they all do a great job. But back to the class itself, what does it say? It speaks just, you know, what it should speak, truth and reality. You know, this is very, you feel like you're in I feel like it's a little bit of a deja vu in terms of just path along a very blessed career where, you know, you have the opportunity to jump right in and start rebuilding. And what do we sell? The truth and honesty. That the roster at Miami needs to look a certain way. And National Signing Day is kind of, for each program, is the beginning of building a championship football team, right? Talent acquisition, player development, and then personnel use, right? It comes in those three facets. So from the beginning, the message was consistent. We never strayed from it. We're always transparent and honest. They were here. Our players were transparent and honest with our recruits as well. And that's why through rough patches, you are able to sustain that level of trust and confidence to put together a class like this. So credit to everybody. I mean, everybody's involved. Everybody affects somebody. And you know, we're very strong believers that this is more than just recruiting. This is relationship building. This is building a partnership. We don't kidnap someone's son and bring him over here and say, hey, we'll bring him back in 4 years. We align ourselves with our goals and our principles and our values with these families to make sure we're all on the same page, to make sure on this journey, because you will go through some rough patches, that everyone could stick together and find a way to make it work. So all those things, you know, came to fruition. And again, we're not done, so hopefully it's going to keep trending in a direction we keep gaining more and more momentum.
Mario, looking across the board, it seems like you had a lot of good size in the class, both on the offensive line, but also a linebacker. Are those just kind of two positions that you felt like you guys maybe need to get a little bit bigger at going forward?
Well, we had to get a lot bigger. You know, girth, size, power. I mean, power in the trenches at the line of scrimmage, being able to control the line of scrimmage, knock people back. Sustain blocks, being able to be effective in block destruction, shed blockers, be able to be a knockback tackler, right? Big difference in being able to strike somebody and knock them back or prevent them from gaining any extra yardage as opposed to, you know, maybe drag down tackling, you know, wrap and rolling some of that stuff when you could really create 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10 as opposed to 2nd and 4. So those things are important. We got significantly larger at those positions, but also we think that we brought in some really high-level athletes, some high-level football IQs, a lot of length to those positions as well, and range when you're playing the offensive line position. And all these guys play all the positions. They all do. That you're able to have guys that can cover a lot of ground and recover. So if they do take a poor step, if they do take a poor set, if they miss with a punch hand, that they can recover, redirect, get good head placement, hand position, and still be able to have a successful rep. So we feel very, very confident in what we have acquired in this year's class at both those positions, and we expect some epic battles both in the spring and the fall.
Coach, you mentioned 4 transfers. Can you name the 4 to confirm them, and then what they're bringing to your team?
Absolutely. Absolutely, okay. All right, the 4 transfers. I feel like I'm studying for finals back at the Learning Center, you know what I mean? All right, Cam, here you go, buddy. QB's tight ends, O-line, D-line, an area I like to stop frequently at. All right, here we go, the transfers. Okay, we'll start with Thomas Gore, who joins us, over from Georgia State. Just a really productive player on film. Just great with his hands, technician, plays a lot of power, all-conference player. He's generated 76 pressures and 14 sacks over 3 seasons, and he was great to connect with, shares the type of mindset and DNA that we're looking for. Francisco Mauinoa, okay, who happens to be related to Francis Mauinoa, who are 6 hours difference from us right now back in Hawaii. And these 2 guys they're special guys in a special family. Really looking forward to that battle right there. These are 2 enormous Giganosaurus Rex type human beings, okay? And they are extremely, Francis lets me know every single day how well he catches the ball, so obviously he's trying to set up for a tackle touchdown. That's for later in the conversation. But I need to point out, Francisco was recruited independently of Francis, okay? He goes by Kiko and Francis goes by Cici. So Kiko, if you watch him, he's arguably a top 3 linebacker in the Pac-12. All right, if you I don't know if you guys watch PFF or kind of take a peek at that every now and then, his grades are off the charts in both, defending the run and in pass coverage. And he's a large guy, he's a striker, a knock you back tackler, uses his hands really, really well. Diagnosis plays extremely well. Just a very seasoned football player. And a guy we're really excited about, Devontae Brown, who, again, I know what it's like to play with a brother, and a couple of these guys have that opportunity. I think that's extremely special, especially if you don't like him. You could hit him every day, But Devontae Brown, he's played 1,900 snaps and allowed just 4 touchdowns in coverage at UCF. He is a large defensive back with a lot of range, great hips, great feet, great hands. Again, he's another guy. We're glad they're both here together, but would have been recruited independently of his brother when he hit the portal. He has 2 seasons of eligibility remaining. Thrilled to have him. Obviously, his father, Selwyn, was a great player here. Thrilled to have Damari as well. He just announced we got his paperwork in, so we're allowed to speak about him. One of the elite corners in the country this year. I mean, that's kind of sums it up right there. I mentioned Francisco earlier, but I failed to mention Francis. One of the elite players overall in the country this year as well, at 335 pounds, and that's in moon pounds. He's probably 350, you know what I mean? So he's a guy that we're counting on, both these guys, all these guys, to make an impact right away. And then Javion Cohen, who joins us from Alabama. He started 25 games over the last couple of years over there with 38 knockdown blocks. He's a top offensive lineman in the portal. Coach Mirabal and him hit it off right away. Hard not to hit it off with Coach Mirabal when you're talking about the old line. He did not allow a sack, in 1,600 snaps at Alabama, and was a freshman All-SEC player. 325 pound, just athletic, tough, smart guy. A system that's very familiar to the system that we run, so the transition is something that we expect to be smooth and seamless, and brings a lot of energy, a lot of toughness. Very seasoned player that brings a lot to the table. So, we're working our way towards a roster that is physically getting to where it needs to be. But those are the 4 current transfers which we have received financial aid agreements from. Obviously, that keeps going and going. So.
Hey Mark, can you talk about the punter? I know he doesn't get the same attention maybe one of the Black Stars or whatever, but how did you find him? And what do you expect from him? And I assume he'll be, he'll be the day one starter, right? You're only scholarship punter?
He is, I'm sorry to say, he's a scholarship punter. Absolutely. I just want to get some, so I make sure I got the right statistics. We want to get another Lou Headley, but we want to get the first, Dylan Joyce. I don't want a guy to feel like, hey, you're the next this. We'd rather say you're the first of, your kind. And, film-wise, he was by far by far the very best and could do the things that we do. You know, this year we were a top 10 special teams operation in just about every unit. In the conference, we were top 1 or 2 in 3 or 4 of those phases, and a large reason why was because of Lou and his ball placement. You know, the ability to just extend, you know, plays when you're punting the football. Ball placement, he can roll right and punt right, roll right, punt left, put it right down the middle, sit still and punt it either way. And we feel that Dylan can do that. Just a lot of characteristics of what we're looking for. Hard-working guy, not afraid to tackle. Punters every now and then got to get down and make a tackle. And he has experience doing that, so we're thrilled to have him. And he's part of this class. Will be here shortly.
Mario, what do you expect as far as like leadership from players in this class? From the players I've met, like Ray, Ruben Bain, Mark Fletcher, a lot of them are very, you know, took on leadership roles with their high school teams. I'm not saying they're going to come in and be leaders on the day one, but, you know, be leaders in their class and going forward.
Well, no, it makes great sense. No, especially the way, you know, you mentioned their posture at the end. It's leaders of their class. The most important thing is, right, getting everybody to come together, right? Because if you're putting together a great football team, like you look at this list right here, these are alphas, right? These are guys that are used to being the top dog at their respective place. They're used to being the guy. And that's what we recruit. That's what we're going to recruit. And they all come from different parts. They come in different shapes and sizes. And now the goal is to make sure they bring them all together, you know, to be part of one common culture and brotherhood, and make sure we're all working in the same direction, right? And it's okay to have bumps, you know, and along the way some, you know, a little grinding, you know, some intense moments as you figure that stuff out, because typically people that have high care factors are going to be competitive, and competition brings intensity and passion out of people. And that's what we have to litter our locker room and Green Tree practice field with. That's where all this thing comes into play in a manner where, you know what, it's going to up the level of what we do and how we do it. I'm counting on every single one here to bring everything they have, also to come with an open mind and open heart, to join together, right, in a football family, a brotherhood. I think oftentimes, and I've been part of staffs where you make the mistake, oh, these guys are coming over to take over, and these guys, no. Come on, man, we're one team. The enemy's in the other locker room. And we've got to learn how to play together. To do that, you know, the offseason has got to be extremely important. Every piece of it, every day has to be geared towards doing that, accomplishing that. So that's what we expect from them. You mentioned Ruben Bain. I mean, Mr. Every, he's just about won every award. He's out of space in his house for trophies and medals. And a guy that I think they're at the end, him and Samson Okunlola, you know, they both provided a tremendous amount of momentum going down the stretch to make this the kind of class that it is. But he represents, you know, him, Ray, Robbie, Bobby. I mean, all these guys represent, you know, what Dade County football is. Just hard-nosed, tough guys, great families, hard-working families. I mean, these guys they're the real deal, you know, and they join the guys from Broward County that are also the exact same. A lot of them we're familiar with because we know them. I'm trying to make sure. I know we mentioned Damari earlier, Mark Fletcher, you know, Antoine Jackson, who graduated early. You know how hard it is to graduate early and get reclassified? That's hard. You know, that takes a lot. He's going to get great mentorship from the guys here. You know, we already have that planned out for him. Ray, come on now. You know, can't find a bigger playmaker than that out there. You know, unless you go down the street and you got Robbie. So you got two guys that are making plays and that are just exceptional guys that just don't waver, right? No matter what. These guys they want to be Miami Hurricanes. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a Miami Hurricane. It meant that much more to wear the U than to wear anything else. They didn't call it the U back then, it was UM, right? My dad used to say, when we go into the UM, you know? I love that. I'll never forget that. And to our community, it's got to mean that much more as well. So, you know, for example, Ruben Bain gets a sack the other night, right? In the state championship game, he throws up a U. Well, you notice in the stands, half the people in the stands are wearing University of Miami football gear. That's awesome, right? That's always been part of the fabric of our team. So, but then we're all from all over as well. And you know what? A guy that doesn't get spoken about enough is Bobby Washington. You want to talk about a guy that could run and strike and is really, really gifted. I remember recruiting his father back in the day. You know, he still looks like he could play. You know, and just an awesome family, hard-working mom. I mean, goes on and on and on. So.
Or you get some international guys too, with Collins, Achiampong, I want to pronounce that right, Frankie Tinilao guys.
Achiampong.
There you go. Frankie Tinilao, those guys.
Tinilao.
Yeah. Just if you can speak to them and what you liked about their personalities and their fit for the school.
Oh, these guys, like, they're humble, driven guys. They're grateful to be playing the game of football. Like, they treat football and they look at it as, man, what a privilege it is to play this game. Now, granted, 6'6" and 6'7" yeah, you know, makes them attractive, right? Being able to come off the edge the way that Collins does, being able to get his hands on people and shed them the way he does, obviously, you know, makes it really, really special. That's a uniquely talented, size spec, you know, intangible type guy that is really, really hard to find. And the same thing goes for Frank. We offered Frankie before there was real film on him. You know, as an offensive line coach, Coach Mirabal has got an unbelievable set of lamps. I mean, he could really project very well. And watching those movements of his workouts on tape, the way he could bend and come out of his hips, big guys have a hard time stepping. He can get his ankle in the ground while fully bending and dropping his lower half down, and then coming out of those hips and being explosive and showing great balance and body control as he slides and anchors and uses his hands. Another awesome young man, and guys that, you know, I know Collins was a late flip, you know, but his heart was always set on Miami. Frankie endured, you know, just about every recruiting pitch known to man and stayed loyal and stayed with us the entire time. And all he did was just work, you know, get better, come out here and watch practice when he was allowed to, you know, be around us. So extremely grateful to those guys.
Your thoughts on where you stand at wide receiver? Would you like ideally to add another veteran if the right one comes available in the portal? And Robbie Washington and Joseph, your two receivers in this class right?
Well, without a doubt, well, first, the two guys that we got, we think they are dynamic playmakers. And we don't think, you know, when you set your recruiting board, they were at the top of the board. They were must-get guys, local guys. They had all the right, made of the right stuff. They did all the right things. We got to see him at our 7-on-7s, got to see him at camp, and they were exceptional because they are elite route runners that can turn a 5-yard hitch into an 80-yard touchdown, right? And sometimes it's nice, you know, to be able to, you know, send out the PAT field goal units instead of 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6. These guys can do that. They were, you know, they're very, they are very motivated. They love Miami. They've always loved Miami. We are continuing to pursue outside receivers. We are. We still need a couple of guys just to have a balanced roster and just to have normal numbers. We are low on numbers there, and we also are pursuing defensive tackles. Those are the two areas that we haven't fully addressed yet in this recruiting class.
All right, knowing you can't name names, you do have one committed player who didn't sign today. Are you optimistic, hopeful, confident that you could get?
We are optimistic and hopeful about every single person that we have recruited due to relationships and just a long time being invested in these guys from a personal and professional standpoint.
And then just, you're obviously an O-line guy, the two not just the two, but Francis and Sampson obviously come with a lot of...
It doesn't get better than those guys. I'll just start gushing about them right now before you finish the question. It doesn't get better coming out of high school than what those, and I've been fortunate now. I mean, over the years, you know, Panay Sewells, you know, Cam Robinsons, Jonah Williams, Alex Leatherwoods, these are elite guys. You know, I was a GA here when I had the great fortune with Arthur Francis Kehoe recruiting, you know, Brian McKinney and those guys. Yeah, these guys are elite monstrosities. They are ginormous human beings that don't move like big guys. They move like linebackers. They play with power. They have exceptional football IQ, relentless work ethics. They are as mean and nasty on the field as you can imagine. And I want to throw, you know, the other tackles in there. Frankie Tinilao, we just mentioned him. You know, I want to talk about Tommy Kinsler, Big Bruno. Exact same thing. Bruno is an elite, powerful, knock you back as a road grader, but be able to dance on the edge of the perimeter with you, you know, at offensive tackle. And Frankie, the exact same thing. These are really, really powerful guys. On the interior, you got, you know, big Antonio Tripp, and he is like the flagship, like, recruiter of the class. He committed early and he led the charge. You know, him and his mom were unbelievable. Should have put him on staff early, you know? Really, really good. But the thing about that, he's also a really good person, and he's a great football player, you know? And he made the move to IMG he felt he needed to further challenge himself and get in that environment. He ends up joining up with Jaden Wayne, you know, who relationships there, offered him a scholarship at the Pacific Northwest camp in Portland, Oregon 4 years ago. Just watching this long, skinny dude, right? Looked like an avatar, running around all over the place, not knowing what's up. Found him, offered. 4 years later, one of the best players in the entire country, Jaden Wayne, is a member of the University of Miami. Well, all of a sudden, he's over there with Antonio, with Francis, right? And then there's Riley Williams, who I had an opportunity to coach his brother at the University of Oregon. So a relationship forged there 4 years ago, and offered him 3 years ago. All of a sudden, all these guys are playing together. You know, Riley, Jackson Carver, who could fly his own jet over here if he wanted to. He's a pilot. He got his license. You know, Riley's a guy who was elite, playing. He was a big wide receiver that just kept growing and growing, so he had to move a little bit closer to the ball. You know, and Jackson went from playing, you know, lacrosse and knocking people out sideways to making the jump to football, and the rest has been history. Recruited by everyone in the country. I know that it was you asked a different question. I don't know where it went, but what was the original
It was
question?
about the 2 tackles, Samson
Yeah.
and
Well, but again, you know, all these guys, Frankie, again, 5-position guy. Big Bruno, Tommy Kinsler, 5-position guy. All these guys have to be, and you know why? Just like with Panay Sewell back in the day, he played left tackle his entire college career. Guess what? He was drafted 6th or 7th overall. They tapped him on the shoulder. Detroit Lions said, "Hey, buddy, I know you're a first-round pick. You got to go to right tackle." And shame on us if we don't prepare these guys to be successful, because I know guys want to play in the NFL. We got to make sure that they stay in the NFL. That's one of their goals, right? So, and to do that, we got to make sure that they're very versatile, and that's part of our training regimen for offensive linemen. That's why Coach Mirabal continues to be known as the best O-line coach in the country.
Along those same lines, just the trenches in general. I know when you got here, it was kind of like you felt you kind of be filled out through there. Can you just talk about just like how you kind of attached both sides of the trenches on the offensive line and the defensive line? Josh Gordon, a big, you know, body of long and stuff like that. You can talk about how far along it's come.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's you know, you always study teams from afar, because when you're strategizing, no matter where you work, you always look at what, you know, what the country looks like in case you have them on the schedule, in case you play them, you want some background on them. And, you know, felt coming in, that was one of the biggest things. Miami had to recruit different. You know, Miami should be stacking up classes like this year after year after year. And that hasn't happened. Not being critical, being honest. It's important we're honest in here, right? Got to shoot straight. Miami used to dominate the draft. Used to dominate the draft. 1st, 2nd round picks, right? Dominated it. Well, that's, okay. Signing day results in better draft days. Okay? So that's why it is critical that this continues to take an uptick every single year. That we continue to invest in this, invest in people, right? Time, energy, making sure they get everything, every ounce that we have, because that results in better organizations, better teams, better football families, right? Better universities. So that's what we are invested in. The line of scrimmage, it has to look a certain way. To look a certain way, there has to be a size spec aspect. You cannot compromise. You cannot compromise toughness, intelligence, power, recoverability, athletic ability. All these things are just, if you don't have them, it's hard to create that and make up for it in the weight room. The weight room is meant to enhance those qualities. Can't invent them in there. So, you know, our strength coach is probably the most excited guy, because, I mean, we're bringing him some real deal, you know, awesome elite athletes to work with, you know. And you know, coaches forever, man, they're kind of like, you know, when you were a kid and you got those toys, no assembly required. Coaches are like that a lot. We're not. You know, we like investing time, building, reshaping, assessing, tweaking. And to get these guys in here early, and about 20 of them are going to be able to come early, is an unbelievable advantage. And the line of scrimmage always needs a little more time to develop. Well, that's what January, February, March, and April are for, right? Nowadays, that should, instead of guys shouldn't have to redshirt anymore. That should be that redshirt space, the springtime and winter.
So a couple more for Coach.
Yeah, with 85 still being the limit, about where are you now with scholarship numbers and how many openings are left?
Oh, I don't even look at that right now. I'm being honest. Right now, we have to make sure that we continue working our way towards finding the very best 85 scholarship players and the very best 35 prefer to walk-on players as well. And they've got to check boxes. And that's a never-ending process. That should never ever, roster assessment, roster enhancement, talent acquisition, and player development, those things are just, they're never ending. So, I mean, the numbers are fine. There's no concern there. I know you have to get to a certain number at the end. There's plenty of time and plenty of room. So it's full systems, all systems go. It's full throttle going forward. We need to continue to acquire more elite talent.
Mario, the state of Georgia, you got 3 kids out of there. I don't think you've talked about them much yet.
Well, you haven't asked.
Aguirre, no, I know. I'm still messing up. Aguirre, Horton, and Pulliam.
Popo, so Popo's father's from Miami, Florida. You know that? Coach Mirabal was his teacher. That's where that connection is right there, you know? So right away, tremendous connection. Big, physical guy. Downhill player, defensive player of the year in the region. I mean, I think he's been up to 235 plus. When we first got here, he came for the first junior day. We were in love with Popo. The connection, the family, Mirabal, you know, knowing him from way back, and then just the way he played, his style of play, a ball of energy. He is off the charts. We got to mention Malik Bryant too, because Malik Bryant has dual value. He's been playing inside linebacker, and he's an absolute stud. And he also has edge pressure capabilities, and he's a guy that we're going to be able to use at both those spots. One of the highest rated players in the country at the linebacker position, but also recognized for his ability to bring pressure to the passer. Awesome family, has been with us for a long, long time. We expect great things from him. You mentioned Georgia, Josh Horton. That's exactly what 3 techniques should look like. You know, he's over 6'4", he's 285 to 290 pounds. You probably saw footage of him on Twitter dunking over his friends. Didn't work out so well for his friend, but this guy is a jumbo athlete that's explosive, natural pass rusher, natural run stopper, comes out of his hips. I mean, this is the best part about him. Okay, Coach Williams, you know, we got a chance to know him really well at Langston Hughes. Tremendous coach. I'm talking about culture, culture, culture. He gets there, I think their first year they won 2 games. 2 games. This is what attracted him to Miami. And then his 4-year track there culminated in them winning the state title, you know, about 2 weeks ago. You know, you need that. And you want that on your team. Guys that are willing to go through what it takes to do it right. And I've seen, you know, the tough times. I've seen, you know, the building, have gone through some of the ups and downs. So I think he embodies all that stuff and more. Marcelius Pulliam, again, also another state champion. And a guy, we were drawn to him because when we turned on his film, he was knocking people out left and right. That's what he was doing. Size, speed guy. He's over 6'3". He's over 220 already, and room to grow. And smart, and tough, and a hard worker. You know, those were things that we just weren't willing to compromise. Awesome guy to be around, all right? We didn't mention Caleb Spencer, who needs to be mentioned. I mean, just another guy, turn on the film. Hard to find a safety in high school right now that runs the eye like he does and puts a stop to the run game. And he understands what the fits are. He understands coverages extremely well. High-level IQ guy, really hard worker. Had an injury, season cut short, but up until then, was one of the more physical players we had seen on tape at any position. Awesome guy to be around, great family. A guy I certainly had to mention. I just don't want to leave anybody out. I didn't mention Robert Stafford, man. I mean, that's one of the most electric players in all of football right now. That guy does it all. I mean, he's like Spider-Man. I mean, he's catching balls all over the place as a receiver, as a DB, as a return specialist. Again, awesome to be around these families. Awesome to be around. He's incredible. Mentioned Bobby and Robbie, Jaden Wayne, we mentioned him. We mentioned Riley. We talked about Antoine Jackson, Mark Fletcher, Damari, Ruben, Popo. Did I miss anybody? Hurricane Bain, man. Hurricane Bain. Imagine being Reggie Bain walking around the office all the time. Hey, when's your brother coming? When's your brother coming? So credit to him, because you know what? He's a great young coach, and he's another one that's here independent of his brother's recruiting process. Reggie's a really, really good young football coach, and you need those guys. You need people that are going to be good for young people. Critically important. So got to have that. But I mean, you see what we're recruiting. I mean, we want to go after the best of the best and not slow down. And guys that are willing to compete, right? That's almost like a lost art almost nowadays, right? We don't want whiners, complainers. We don't want tweet monsters. We want real deal people that understand the value of an education at the University of Miami, a private school elite education in the best city in the world, and rebuilding what has always been one of the premier and gonna be one day the premier program in the country once again. So the targets were laid out, and credit to the staff and everybody else. They did a great job.
Coach, as far as
This is the last question for Coach.
as far as immediate impact, how would you compare this class to previous classes that you've recruited?
This is, man, there was a 21 class at the University of Oregon, and a 19 class, and there were 3 straight years of top 10 picks. Same thing at the University of Alabama. I feel that this class, the 13, probably the 14 Alabama, the 20, 21 Oregon, 3 best talent acquisition coups that I've been a part of. This was what I'm most excited about. You know, this is where I played and all that stuff. And it's not done yet. You know, you didn't have a transfer portal back then, so you still have room to grow this thing even more. Okay, so yeah, it hit on all cylinders. I know we got a couple spots we mentioned that we've got to fill up a little bit more, but all in all, it's a complete class. It really is, you know, and it's going to make us better. Our players are going to make them better. Our players played a huge role in these guys coming to the University of Miami. And you want your players to feel and take ownership in the recruiting process. That was a huge part of myself being a student athlete here under Coach Johnson and Coach Erickson. They made it clear, you want to have a great team, you recruit your teammates. You know who's a good guy. You know who's a competitor, right? Go get them. And they did. They did, and we're super excited to have them. Anything else?
Well, the loafers. Everybody's talking about. You have to know where they're from.
Look, I'm sorry I'm not as fashionable as you know, and some of the rest in here. I catch all kinds of hell from my wife on the way I dress all the time, so I appreciate you adding on to that even more. So, I mean, what can I say, man? I don't have time to shop, but hopefully this off season, maybe you could find time to help me just dress better, and we'll go with it. I don't know what to say, but I can say this, just very thankful and grateful to be here. We've got a lot of work to do. There is no flinching. There is no nothing except the mentality to go forward. But the right pieces are starting to fall in place, and you know, it's back to work.